If you're a millennial like me, you probably have been through this phase, or are going through this phase like me, where you're right out of college and you are just lost what to do. Well, don't worry, you're definitely not alone. I'm here facing it myself. You might not just be fresh out of college. You can be 3 to 5 years in the workspace and still feeling lost because maybe the job is not what you wanted. You're still like thinking, man, what do I really want to do with my life? Well, in this video, I really want to just address that. And hopefully you can learn a bit or two, because there are some few things that I find helpful to myself in terms of overcoming it. Although I gotta say, I haven't really overcome it fully, and I'm still going through this journey just like you are. So, let's get into it. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Nikhil Sujadi. I create content to empower millennials by sharing relatable topics, just like this, which is really what I feel 90% of millennials go through, unless you really know and figure your shit out really quick. If that's the case, well, you are definitely in good hands. But like most millennials, we are lost. Well, why are we lost in the first place? I think we are lost because for the first time, we are going through this phase of life where we sort of have to take control of our decision. We're getting more responsibilities in our lives, and that includes choosing the career path that we want to go. What is the career path that we want to take? And I think firstly, out of the bat, when we are still in college, how we make that decision is very highly influenced on our family, on our peers, on the society, on what perceives to be ideal, right? And different industries have this ideal job. In business, it's management consulting and investment banking. Because if you get into one of these two, it's most likely is there is high salary, companies are highly reputable, and you are also perceived good, perceived highly among your peers as well. And I think that influences a lot on our decision making on what are the jobs we want. Because I am definitely guilty of that. I'm currently in IT consulting because in my penultimate year, I realized that, wow, everyone wants to get into consulting. I guess consulting must be good. And then I look into consulting and I get a very high level job scope. It's really helping companies who has problems. And I guess if you want to help companies that has problems, you have to be smart, right? And since it's pretty competitive, I guess it has to be good. And from then on, I'm like, you know what? I want to get into consulting. So I put all my effort into consulting. I do all the case interviews. I practice all that. I try to get into as many case competitions as I can. And I think that's where the first problem comes. It was all the assumption that was built. The reality can be very far off from what we assume it is to be. And I think that's very similar to me. For some reasons, there is something that's a bit off. I do not know what it is. I don't think I still know what it is yet. But I just know that it might not be something that I want to do for the rest of my life. And that's where this feeling of being lost starts to come back again. I thought I had all this figured out. I thought I had the roles that I want to have. But no, it's not. And I feel like, well, shit, I guess I'm back to square one, am I? So what can you do? What can you do in that situation? Or what am I doing in that situation? Well, I think one of the best way that we can do is to continue experimenting. I think we are still in this phase of life where we are still experimenting what we want to do. And that includes what career path we want to take. Which means that the first career path that we take will most likely not be our ultimate ones, will not be our end goal. And that's why we have to constantly experiment. Experiment what we really like and what is it for us. And how can we do that? How can we experiment when we already have a job that we are sort of stuck in? So I think we can actually experiment in two parts. One that is inside our job and outside our job. What do I mean by inside our job? I think inside my job means dissecting your work into different pieces and figure out which of these pieces is the one that actually excites you. I use the word excites because I think it's more relatable than passion, because passion seems to be like these buzzwords, but you can feel when you're excited for it. So what do I mean by that? For example, when I'm involved in a project, there are things that involve, for example, talking to clients, documenting, a bit of designing, and then delivery of work. So you can sort of dissect it into different pieces of task and see which of these tasks is the one that actually excites you the most. Funny enough for me, the task that I was actually excited about was actually not the one that is my main job scope. I was involved in a few side projects, internal projects that requires designing work, designing of posters just to market it out, and I took up that role. I took up the designing role, and funny enough, I find it really exciting to the point where I actually use my own free time to actually take part in it, to actually design it. And I would go to the extent where even though I was in the client side, I would actually go back to my headquarters to actually talk to my manager and actually discuss about the design of it. And people actually start telling me, you know what, you are actually pretty good at design. And this actually doesn't just come out from one person or two. It was actually quite a few different people that come up to me for that. And I realized that, yeah, I actually do like designing. I like something that's aesthetically pleasing. And so I suddenly realized that about myself, and I thought, you know what, maybe I want to do a bit more of the design work. So that's where I actually come to the second point, which is out of your job. Because designing is not my main job scope, I try to use designing as something of a side hustle. And I'm actually a very strong advocate of side hustle, such as this YouTube channel, and my podcast was actually my first side hustle. Of course, podcast is more about audio content and all that, but I tried to put a bit of designing work into it. We make an Instagram account, Quarter Life Hack, and that requires a bit of design, finding the theme to it, putting out visual content to the social media to promote our channel. And what I realized is that, yep, actually, you know what? I do like this designing work. It actually is something that I'm pretty good at, something that actually excites me. I wouldn't have figured it out if I didn't actually experiment in my current job at that moment. So I definitely urge you to try to experiment in your whatever job you are. Maybe take on a few internal projects, or if there's no internal project that excites you, maybe you can have a side hustle. Maybe you can build something out of scratch. And by starting something, you definitely learn a lot of things. And you can potentially find a thing or two that actually excites you. By experimenting, we are actually doing a process of elimination. It's like how we solve multiple choice question back in school. We eliminate each of these options one by one by looking at that option and see whether that actually makes sense to us. And that's the same thing. When we experiment, we look at these choices and see whether that's the right answer for us. Is this the thing that actually excites me? Is this really what I want to do? And by doing it, we start to figure out, okay, you know what, maybe this is not it. And there's gonna be a few options that is like in that gray area where we feel, you know what, maybe it is for me, but I'm not really sure yet. And then we start to dig even deeper. We do more of this stuff, and then we start to realize that maybe it is for me, or maybe it's not for me. And then we can eliminate that and move on to the next option. And by doing process of elimination with the right patience and persistency, we can finally find that right answer to this question. One more thing that I want to share is that we don't have to figure this out right away. Our life is just like a movie, right? Imagine watching a movie one quarter way and you start off realize what the whole movie is going to be about. It's not very exciting, is it? And I think that's very similar. What's the rush in figuring it out when we're just one quarter way through this movie? Why not just embrace this uncertainty and questions that we have, instead of looking at this as if like it's some kind of burden that's pulling us down, that, man, if we are not figuring it out at this current moment, then we are screwed. And I think having this change in perception can actually help us to be really more positive during this journey, because oftentimes we can really be pulled into this black hole of negativity that we just do not know what we want to do with our lives, and we can constantly be very depressed trying to answer this question. This is also a message that I have been trying to tell myself about it, because there are a lot of times where I'm just thinking, man, is this gonna work? I don't know. I'm doing this side hustle, I'm doing the podcast, I'm doing this YouTube, and I'm not sure how this is gonna be. And I think only time will tell if this is gonna get anywhere or not. I think the key message to this video is really to just don't get so worked out trying to figure it out. Instead, embrace this opportunity, embrace this process, and embrace this process of experimenting. And one day, we'll probably figure it out when the time comes. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do give a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you like more of this relatable content. And until next time, peace.